I have the one and only Chris B in the office today. The guys were kind enough to fly out today, and I'm going to pepper him with a bunch of questions about releases. We've got the UV button. We've got a UV hinge too. We have a brand new UV button in a box, which is soon to be Omar's, I'm told. But I wanted to run through a bunch of questions. Primarily, I wanted to know about like initial setup, trigger travel, trigger tension. I want to talk about hand position. So I'm going to pepper you with a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Let's talk travel first. Do you like any travel in your trigger?
Yeah. So I guess let me first start with like the Ultra button. Why it's premium or whatever is you can adjust independently the travel settings and the tension settings.
Okay.
So when
we can pull this one out and take a look at it real quick.
When you say travel, what we mean by travel is the actual movement of the button before it fires. So it's like if you got to move it, and then boom, it fires. There's a lot of travel. But if you're pushing it and it's not moving, you're just adding pressure, and then boom, it goes off. So there's no actual physical movement. There's no travel. So I think people are sometimes confused on what travel actually is compared to tension. So you have it set up where there is absolutely no travel. You just add tension. The actual mechanism is not moving, at least of what we can see, until boom, finally it fires and goes off. And you also have the pressure, the force set very, very light. So we have no travel and very light pressure. So you're on the very far end of the spectrum when it comes to when it comes to that, which is where most people end up, is no travel. I personally like no travel. I know some guys do like travel because they mechanically, it's similar to a hinge, because a hinge there is quote unquote this travel because mechanically you need to move and you need to rotate for boom, it finally to pop off. So some guys do like to have that little bit of travel so that they're actually moving, boom, and then it finally goes off. Personally, I don't. I just like to add that tension.
Do you have any idea the type of person, like what would somebody be kind of facing, or what would somebody be like that likes some trigger travel? Is there something about their shot that you can think of? Like
I would say it's maybe a more advanced shooter that's looking for a more controllable situation.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like I know Joel Turner is really big on like controlling your shot, and part of controlling your shot is having consistent movement in something. So that's why he came up with like a clicker or travel in your release, a lot of movement, because you can keep that movement consistent and steady, and you know when you break that movement.
If someone was struggling with target panic.
For sure, I think potentially it could be. It's not like easy to slap.
Yeah.
You got to be like, okay, process. We got to move it.
Yeah, you got to move it,
and then boom, it goes off.
So mine's a little light for your liking. I'm gonna hand you that one.
Yeah.
That one's brand new out of the box, hasn't been touched.
So I like to have the barrel swooping back just like a little tiny bit. We swing our thumb around and we get it on there. You want a good amount of meat to be able to essentially bunch up the fat of your thumb. And you can see your thumb almost turns white because of the pressure. And that's what makes the release go off. It's not like a downward motion. You're actually like dragging against this barrel and adding pressure and pushing and pulling and dragging it and boom until it finally goes off.
Okay. And
that's why we added the spiral on the button and then the Helix knob, which we'll get into too. But if you have a smooth surface here, it's harder to do that. And if you have something that really grabs onto your thumb and you can push and pull and drag it across it, that's best to essentially get that job done. But yeah, so I like to swing the barrel back a little bit. I mess around with it all, and there's many ways to skin the cat per se. There's many ways to do it, and every hand's different. The lengths of everyone's joints slightly different, so there's no one right way. Like even all these couple releases around, they're all slightly different. But what I like to do, I like to keep it shoved all the way in, but I move the barrel back and down slightly. So that gets me more relaxed and don't have to swing my thumb around as much.
So tell me adjustments, how you adjust it.
Yep, so right here we have force and we have travel. So they're very, mapped out really well, plus and minus, adding travel, taking away travel, adding force, taking away force. We have a hole right here and a hole right there. So what you're going to do to set it up for zero travel, which we kind of recommend to kind of maybe start there, and then you kind of work which way direction you do. So you set the release, so you push in that back button, then you stick the Allen wrench in, and then, there we already went. So then we tighten it slowly until it fires.
Okay.
Then we recommend backing out a quarter turn.
Okay.
You don't want to be right on the very edge. You got to think about it like it's two ledges, and what makes it go off is by slipping off that ledge. No different than a hinge, but on a button it's all internal. So you want it to get to the point where it's off the edge, and then you back off just a quarter turn. So then it's sitting just right barely on the edge, and yes, it does still move, but we're not in tuned enough to feel that movement. So now we're set up for absolutely zero travel, and then if we wanted to add force, we go over to the force one, and you know, we can set it up like Trail likes it and back it all the way out.
Keep it hot.
Yeah, now it's really hot.
I'm a race car in the red, Chris. I'm ready to run.
And now it's really hot, so I'll set it up exactly how I kind of like it. That's how I would run it. Yep.
Okay. It'll go off eventually.
You got to get some meat into it. That's the thing. It's like you wanna set your thumb on it. You don't want to be scared about it, and then you just keep adding pressure.
Gotcha. And
I might go a tad bit lighter than that. It's so tough until you get, you know, behind the bow and actually start
I did
shooting.
notice what you were saying though, is you got your thumb laid over it. You can almost see the color change in your thumb. It goes from like a nice pink to a white almost as you're pulling, kind of relaxing and pulling through. I noticed that sometimes I'd get a little bit deeper, like almost into this knuckle right here. I feel like when I'm shooting the best, I've got it kind of located in this little middle section between the two joints. I found that I kind of sometimes get inconsistent. Like I'll put the first finger, my pointer finger, I'll get it right, but then sometimes I'll get deeper into this.
Okay.
How do you like to shoot yours? Like what do you recommend, like in release location in your hand? And then even more importantly, maybe, when do you set that? Because I noticed I do quite a bit of this.
Which isn't good.
Right.
The best analogy, I was just talking to Lorenzo about this, is imagine you got a 5-gallon bucket full of water. So you got like 20, 30 pounds of water, and the handle is just a wire thin piece of the handle. You go and you pick it up, and you're going to pick it up very naturally the way that your body is supposed to pick something up, and your hand is going to be completely straight on the backside. When you make your hand completely straight on the backside, it automatically sets you up to have your release right in that middle section of your fingers. Not in the knuckles, but you want it to be super relaxed and flat. You don't want your knuckles to be in deep. You don't want to feel like you're hitting and getting tight. 90% of people should be fine shooting the medium, and typically when they're not fine shooting the medium, their knuckles are too deep, which makes it big. Like I couldn't shoot the medium if
you got too deep in it.
Too deep and my knuckles were. But if you're nice and relaxed, you're flat, you got a flat back of your hand.
Gotcha.
Then you swing your thumb around and you punch the crap out of it.
Talk to me about angle of your release hand. And how does it impact you?
I think it's like what you just said. It depends on people's faces and their jaw lines and all that jazz. But you want somewhere soft and comfy to land. But you don't want to be reamed up way on one side, because you're essentially going to be twisting the D-loop way over. The most efficient way to have that angle is for it just to be the same. As long as it's the same every single time, it really doesn't matter what it is, because even if you are torquing it, it's going to be doing the same thing every single time. What's bad is when you are like this one time, and then like this one time, and then in the middle one time. That's where it's bad. So I would say mess around with landing on your face. I don't even know where I land. It's just so instinctive now. But essentially, like my index and my middle finger land somewhere between my jawline right there. So I just land right there every single time. So it's somewhere to feel repeatability and to be able to be in the same. It doesn't matter really how it is, as long as it's the same every single time.
You're not thinking about that when you come to full draw? Like, how does this feel?
I don't think about any of that.
What are you thinking about?
Aiming.
That's what I need to be thinking about. I know that people talk about essentially kind of squeezing their ring finger and their thumb together. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. I think it just comes down to if you can do the same thing over and over. Less big movements are better.
Okay.
So like a more of a relaxed thing is good, but then again, when you're under pressure, sometimes relaxing into is a little bit tougher.
Why do you make two different releases, one stainless, one aluminum, and do you prefer one over the other, and why?
Yeah, so functionality-wise, they're exactly the same. Internally, externally, they're the same. It's just a weight thing. So some people, they like a heavier release. They can feel it. They feel like it might even like stabilize them at full draw a little bit more. Like it makes them less jittery. And then some people like it light. You know, they don't like carrying around a heavy release, and they don't really mind not having weight when shooting. So it's strictly a personal preference.
What do you like?
I like the light. Most people like the heavy because you can just feel it, and it feels, you know, maybe better or more industrial or whatever.
Yeah.
But I like the light because ripping around in my vinyl harness or in my pocket or wherever else, I like it light.
Gotcha. I like the heavy. The reason I like the heavy is because I feel like I can be more relaxed in my hand.
Yeah.
I have trouble like getting tense in my hand, and I feel like the heaviness of it in my hand, it just feels more relaxed. So that's kind of why I like
because you can feel that.
Yeah,
it's
I can
there.
feel the weight of it. Yeah, I just feel like more relaxed. That's one thing I've been working on lately, like the last couple of weeks actually, is as I get into my release, it's just like being light in the release and like relaxed. And if I don't pay attention to it, it's like a check mark that I have to do in my shot process. Otherwise, I can get kind of balled up and tense in my hand.
A good secret is you want to have gentle hands or soft hands.
Soft hands. So that's my hinge. My hinge 2. You can kind of feel how I got it set up. How does that feel to you, and how does that rate in comparison to how you set your hinges up?
Yeah, so obviously less adjustability on a hinge, you know, with the barrel and stuff. Yeah, it's not bad. The click length, I think, is pretty good. It's a little long for how I would, but like we were just talking about a minute ago, how hot a hinge is kind of unfair to just pick one up and be like, this is hotter than this one. It's like, well, it's set differently, but how people draw back is all different, because you could draw back with more pressure on your, you know, your ring finger, and you're actually living on the edge the whole time and you're not moving a lot. So to a guy like that, it's technically a little hotter than someone that's maybe set up in the front half, but they have a lot of movement. Like they have a lot of movement once they're at full draw. Like I would consider that more of a cold style release, like a lot of movement. Like a lot of movement is a colder release than, you know, a hot release is like, hey, you're not moving a whole lot to make it go off.
Yeah.
This is close. I mean, I could definitely pick this up and shoot it.
Should you shoot a click, in your opinion?
I think yes, because all a click does is say you're on the right road, keep going.
Okay.
It's not like a safety thing. It's not a, okay, start aiming now. It's like, get set up, anchor, click, you're doing good, boom.
Keep going. It's a little pat on the back.
Yeah, a little bit. And it's also a rhythm thing. If you're like, you're at full draw and you're like, I for sure should have clicked by now. Then you just let down and you restart.
Gotcha.
Unless you're hunting, then you can't. But you at least know it's, you know, once you hit the click, it's coming.
When you hunt with a hinge, do you shoot a click?
For sure.
Any issues with spooking a big whitetail underneath a tree stand?
I've never spooked one with a click. It's so quiet.
Yeah, it's pretty subtle.
If they can hear that, you got other problems.
Right. You shoot the hinge the same way that you would your button? Do you feel
no.
similar?
No.
No?
Because hinge, you have to move. You have to relax your index.
Angle has to change.
You have to change it. Just functionally, it has to move to go off. Where a button, yes, it has to move, but you can be a little bit more relaxed and just let that barrel slide on your thumb, and boom, it just increases pressure. Whereas this, you need to be rotating. So, like Jesse Broadwater relaxes his index finger a lot of times. I don't know if he still does, but at one point he's, you know, you're relaxing.
That's right.
Your index
Yeah,
finger.
his finger come out.
Yep. Or it's like guys are like, well, I'm pulling on my third, or it's a mix. I'm definitely a mixture of both. It's, you know, you're relaxing your index, increasing tension on your ring, and then it just kind of goes off. But the problem is you tell that to a guy and they're like, oh, I can
rip it.
Yeah, I can just move my release and go just like that,
Yeah,
and
punch it.
fake their follow through, and so that's where it's tricky with the hinge. Is no, it's still surprise. You go through the click and it's all subtle. But yeah, guys will just learn how to rip it.
Yeah,
it's a problem.
When you're shooting your thumb button, are you thinking about activating your release at all, or are you just thinking about what's out ahead of you?
Yeah, I mean I think increasing pressure, I'm like, you know, keep going, good pressure.
Okay.
You shouldn't be thinking about like one main thing too much when you're shooting, unless you're working on something. It's more just like the broad shot and the focus on aiming.
Gotcha. This is a Helix knob that you make as an accessory, right? Do you use this knob? Why did you guys make this knob?
I have used it, and to be honest, if I was like ripping on a target circuit and like really trying to be repeatable, this would be a great option because we set this up in a way where your thumb crease, I don't know if you can see that, your thumb crease fits right on one of these spikes or one of these ridges.
So if you have one of these and you're setting it up, you want that ridge to fit right in that crease of your
thumb. You can do it like this, you can do it like this, but essentially it grabs onto it, adds that pressure again without having a lot of force. Like these, we got these, you know, kind of sharp ridges or whatever that kind of bites into your thumb. Where this, it's more prominent, one ridge, but it, you know, ergonomically fits right in there. And we designed this so you can spin it and really fine tune that process. I mean, you can move this whole thing all around. So you draw back wherever your thumb is relaxed and kind of swing it in and be like, okay, right there's the barrel. And then you can just kind of tweak it a little bit. But you wrap this on that crease of your thumb and you just give it a relax and it goes right off. Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it, but I think the feel of that ridge and that little groove probably would be super repeatable. Like you would you'd be able to find it every single time in the exact same location. I have one of these. I've shot it on and off.
Where this, I find myself kind of at times bouncing around.
Yeah, I agree.
But you can still shoot good and have the same thing, but it's not as repeatable as the Helix. The Helix, you can really jump into that same exact spot every single time.
Last question I've got for you. You sell, this will come with in a 3-finger.
Yep.
Right? You have a 4-finger, obviously, here on mine. 3-finger, 4-finger, 2-finger, why?
It's all personal preference, man. There's no right or wrong reason. Some guys like a 4 for a little more leverage. Some guys like a 2 because more fingers is not always best because you got more variables, more moving parts, so some guys jump to 2. It's completely personal preference. There's no right or wrong answer. A lot of guys will, you know, get them all and try them and land on one or mix and match around or get a 4 and be like you and shoot 4 and then shoot 3 and then shoot 2.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it all with a 4-finger.
Yeah, so buy a 4-finger. That's the take-home message.
Yeah, but, you know, guys shoot. I've seen guys shoot. For some reason, they had a 4-finger, and they're like, I'm going to shoot a 2-finger for a while and just rip it.
How important is consistency in your release to your overall accuracy?
100%, everything. I mean, the consistency in doing the same thing over and over again is accuracy.
I feel like, this is just me personally speaking, I feel like I can aim pretty consistently if I've got the bow set up. Draw length is good, stabilizers are good, my grip is good. I feel like it aims really well. I feel like the problems that I have most often are inaccuracies or just fallacies in my, not fallacies, I don't know what the word is. Inconsistencies in my release hand.
Especially if you start twisting it. I mean, you could get, if you were shooting 80, 70, 80 yards and you shot, you know, flat like this and then be like, okay, I'm going to try shooting like this. You get a different impact big time.
Yeah, and I feel like it, you know, longer yardages, your timing should be the same as shooting at 10 yards, right? Timing should be consistent across the board, right?
Your mind makes it sometimes not.
Yeah, your mind plays tricks with you. And what I find is sometimes when I get at 100 yards and I'm shooting and I've got my angle and it feels good, it feels like I'm trying to pull and like I start to feel some of this. I can feel a little bit of movement in it, you know, it just is not as consistent as I am when I'm less nervous at 20 yards. So it's like something I need to work on for sure. Any take-home tips? You got any bangers with releases?
I would say people love changing stuff around. I say give it a time frame to mess around, change stuff around, but stick with something. Stick with something for a while. Try to be repeatable with it because part of that inconsistency is changing stuff. Like, you know, a good archer, you or I, we can pick up any of these releases and figure it out and end up shooting well with it. So it's like move it around, get it set, and then leave it.
Stick with it for a while.
Yeah. Don't be chasing your tail.
Gotcha. If you got questions about releases, you can drop them in the comments. I'll try to get Chris to answer them. I'll hit him up and be like, hey, you got a comment you need to answer?
Sure.
Or I'll try to answer it. But appreciate you watching. We would love it if you would subscribe.